I've worked private security for over 12 years, but nothing prepared me for what happened inside the Burj Al Noor. The building was a marvel, 56 floors of glass, steel, and money. Smart elevators, voice-activated walls, floor-to-ceiling views of the Dubai Marina. Residents included oil executives, celebrity investors, ex-royalty, and a Russian arms dealer who pretended to be an import-export. You didn't ask questions in a place like this. You enforced protocols, smiled for the cameras, and prayed the rich tipped well. My name's Elias Rahim, former UAE Army, discharged honorably in 2015, joined Sentinel Protective Services in 2016. By 2023, I was a floor supervisor for Burj Al Noor's private detail, overseeing a 12-man rotation. We weren't mall cops. Everyone was armed, certified, and trained. But even the best don't know what to do when the world ends 150 meters below you. The outbreak hit the city in waves. First reports came from Daira, some kind of viral panic in an underground parking structure, a man attacking strangers, people getting sick, collapsing, and then not staying down. At first, it sounded like synthetic drugs again, the kind that shows up in clubs and burns your brain into soup. But the calls kept coming. By mid-morning, we'd locked down Burj Al Noor's lobby as a precaution. No guests in, no deliveries, staff only. Still, we thought it was a city problem, something happening down there, not up here. My shift started at 0600 hours. By 0830, the lobby was a mess. Staff were arguing. Elevators weren't responding to keycard overrides. The concierge's daughter was trying to reach her mother, who worked cleaning at the Souk Madinah. No answer. Half the domestic workers never showed. The rest, pale, tired, jittery. I was watching the CCTV wall in the security control room when I first noticed it. One of the basement janitors, Bilal, standing still in the parking garage, not moving, not even shifting his weight, just there. 15 minutes later, he was still standing in the same spot, but now his head had tilted backward unnaturally, mouth slightly open. And there was someone else lying near the service elevator. No motion, no blood I could see, just flat. I sent Hashim and Tariq to check it out. Both were ex-police, professional, calm. They took radios and stun batons. We weren't expecting resistance, not from a janitor. At 0920, Hashim came over the comm. His voice was clipped, focused. We need medics, and a lock on sub-basement 1, now. I asked what happened. Bilal attacked us, he said. Didn't speak, just ran. We hit him twice. He kept coming. I paused. Ran? We tasered him. Nothing. We had to use force. Tariq's bleeding. I didn't ask more, just locked the sub-basement. Pulled up the camera feed again. Bilal wasn't on screen anymore. The body by the elevator was gone too. 10 minutes later, Tariq was being helped upstairs by 2 other guards, bleeding from his forearm. Deep laceration. Hashim followed, silent. He sat on the bench in the staff medical room and refused to speak for a full hour. Just stared at the floor. I'd known Hashim 6 years. I'd seen him tackle armed thieves and disarm a knife-wielding drunk in a VIP suite. I'd never seen him quiet. By noon, the Dubai metro had shut down. The highways were jammed, phone signals were overloaded. The city skyline, once so sharp and steady, started to feel distant, disconnected. And all the while, more of the cleaning staff started calling in sick or not answering at all. We were operating with maybe a quarter of our normal people, but the residents, those on the upper floors, they barely noticed. They still requested their cars, still complained about Wi-Fi, still demanded their meals. At 1300 hours, a private helicopter landed on the rooftop helipad. It wasn't scheduled. It belonged to one of the tower's penthouse tenants, a man named Richard Harlan, a Canadian tech investor known for hosting ridiculous parties. He'd flown in from his estate in Qatar with 3 people, his personal chef, a nurse, and a bodyguard. All of them looked exhausted. I was ordered to let them up. I met them in the rooftop atrium. Richard looked me over like I was a mannequin, then said, "Lock the elevators. No one comes up unless I say." His tone wasn't arrogant. It was controlled panic. I told him we were under standard lockdown and couldn't grant floor-specific overrides without executive clearance. He just laughed, pulled out a sat phone, and started barking at someone in French. I heard the words containment, vector breach, and patient zero. His face was soaked in sweat, even in the cold air of the atrium. The guards assigned to floors 50 through 56 were told to report only to Richard from then on. He paid their salaries directly. That was how things worked up there. Downstairs, the infection spread. The lower floors housed staff apartments, fitness centers, and luxury business suites. The infected came through the service elevators sometime that afternoon. I don't know how. Maybe a locked shaft wasn't really locked. Maybe one of the staff carried it up without knowing. But by 1500 hours, we'd lost contact with the 28th floor entirely. I sent Nabil and Harris to check. They didn't come back. Cameras showed static, not glitches. Static, like someone had torn the wires out. By 1700, screaming was audible from the mid-floors, screams that stopped too fast. We tried to descend. Group of 4, full gear, tactical vests, batons, sidearms locked in the weapons locker upstairs. Management protocol required written incident forms to access live ammo. Idiotic. On the 31st floor, we found blood. A child's backpack, torn open. A trail down the hallway. No child. No people. Just an echo, a faint dripping sound from inside a luxury suite with the door open. We didn't speak as we backed away from the open door on the 31st. The silence in the hall had too much weight to break. No whispers, no chatter, just that slow, constant drip coming from the luxury suite like the last tick of a broken metronome. Harris was breathing through his nose too fast, and his eyes wouldn't leave the edge of the doorway. I placed a hand on his shoulder and turned him around. We left the way we came, weapons tight to our chests. The stairwell door closed behind us with a soft, hydraulic hiss that sounded way too loud. Once we got back to the control center on floor 17, I sealed the internal locks to every stairwell from 30 down to the service level. Floor by floor, I checked the camera feeds, those that still worked. On some, the hallways were dim, shadows leaning in strange directions like the bulbs had shifted. Others showed movement, people walking with a slow, uneven rhythm, heads slightly tilted, feet dragging, but always going somewhere. They didn't just wander, they moved with purpose, no snarling, no screams, just a creeping mass of bodies like they were drawn to heat or sound, or maybe each other. Hashim said nothing while I worked. He stood by the corner monitors, chewing the inside of his cheek, his baton still smeared with something dry and dark from earlier. He'd been quiet since the sub-basement. When I finally asked if he wanted relief, he just shook his head and pointed to the feed on 33. Someone was standing in the hallway. A woman in a beige maid's uniform, blood on her apron. She faced the camera directly, unmoving, eyes open. Her mouth was parted like she was trying to speak, but no sound came through. Then slowly, her head began to tilt, not sideways, but back, way back, until it looked like her neck should snap. Then the screen went black. It wasn't a power failure, something had torn that camera out. By nightfall, the elevators stopped working completely. We assumed power was being rerouted to the essentials, water filtration, emergency lighting, and the core computing systems of the building. Burj Al Noor was built to withstand Category 5 storms and regional blackouts. The owners had paid for redundancy, but none of that mattered if infected were already inside. I called an emergency staff meeting on floor 21, still clear at the time. 6 guards, 3 engineers, 2 food service personnel, and a medic. Everyone else was either missing, silent on comms, or refusing to leave their assigned floors. Most of the remaining residents were in the penthouses. Their private teams had pulled furniture against the doors and were rationing imported goods like it was a Cold War reenactment. The rest of us were left to figure things out with leftover staff meals and cold coffee. I explained the situation simply. Infection confirmed, civil services offline, tower isolated, no clear chain of command from the city, no help coming. One of the engineers, Rami, tried to laugh, said this was just a gas leak panic, some chemical reaction. People don't get back up after they die, he said, too loud. That's fantasy. I told him he could go down to floor 28 and check for himself. No one volunteered to go with him. That night, we sealed ourselves into the maintenance wing, barricaded the hallway with desks, and snapped mop handles. One of the kitchen staff, a girl named Muna, whispered prayers as she tucked herself into a storage closet to sleep. I sat outside with a borrowed flashlight and watched the hall. Every now and then, a metal creak echoed from one of the ducts. Might have been the building settling. Might have been something else. At 0500 hours, the emergency lights in the corridor went red. Someone had forced open a maintenance shaft on floor 29. We responded fast. 3 guards, makeshift gear. I had a fire axe. Hashim carried a broken curtain rod sharpened to a point. The third man, Daoud, carried a police baton and a large flashlight zip-tied to a paint roller pole. None of it felt like enough. When we reached the 29th, the air smelled different. Not rot, something older, metallic, like damp concrete and rusted tools. The hallway was dark. Emergency lights pulsed every 10 seconds like a heartbeat, red, black, red, black. We moved low, checking doors. Most were locked, then we found one that wasn't. Suite 2908 had belonged to a Lebanese financier and his wife. We knew they'd been evacuated earlier by helicopter, or at least that was the claim. The door hung open slightly, keycard slot dark. We entered with slow steps, flashlights off. The room was silent. Inside, the suite was pristine. Silver cutlery on the dining table, robes folded on the bed. No sign of panic, no broken furniture. But the bathroom door was closed, and from behind it came a sound, a wet, repetitive thudding, like someone patting meat onto tile. Hashim approached first. He put one hand on the door and leaned in. Then he froze. I stepped beside him. From beneath the door's edge, a blackish fluid was spreading outward, thin, watery, and full of clots. We backed out, closed the suite, barricaded the hallway entrance with a vending machine on wheels. We didn't speak on the way back up. By noon, another suite on floor 32 had been breached, then another on 35. We realized the infected weren't trying to break into rooms randomly. They were following noise, movement, echoes, anything alive. And as the power systems continued to fail, the smart tech in the tower started to turn against us. Motion sensor doors stuck open. Automated curtains drew back without command. Voice recognition triggers blared assistance requests into silent halls. We had to go room by room, disabling every panel, unplugging every screen. We gutted the tower's convenience. Rami died on day 3. He tried to bypass the generator lockout to restore internet uplink. Thought he could send a signal, maybe call his sister in Jeddah. He didn't tell anyone. Climbed down the service shaft alone. We found what was left of him on a landing between floors. There wasn't much left to identify. His name tag had melted into his shirt collar, half his face was torn away, and the bite marks were shallow but numerous, like someone had gnawed through him in silence. After that, nobody went alone. Food ran short. The kitchen stores had been stripped by the rich on the upper floors. Our group rationed protein bars and condensed soup meant for staff breaks. We drank filtered water from the maintenance line. The water pressure faltered by day 4. No more hot showers, no more clean clothes. On day 5, Richard Harlan's private guards came down to check the status of the lower levels. 4 of them, in tactical gear, armed with suppressed carbines. I told them to go back up. They stood in the corridor outside the service access on floor 24, 4 of them in black tactical gear that didn't match any local uniforms. Their weapons were real, and I could tell from the way they carried them that they'd used them before. Harlan hadn't hired local mercs. These were foreign contractors, ex-military from somewhere west of here. Webb, the one with the patchy beard and perfect posture, didn't blink when I told them to turn around. He just let the silence hang between us like it was a game of chicken. "We're securing resources," he finally said. "Anything the residents upstairs need to survive, we take it now." I told him this wasn't a looting party. "If you start taking supplies from what's left down here," I said, "you'll get people killed. Maybe yourself." Webb smiled faintly. "Everyone dies. We're just deciding how many of them make it worth it." I didn't move. Neither did Hashim or Dawood, who flanked me with makeshift shields and melee gear. I hadn't seen a bullet in days, but I didn't need one to hold a line. Eventually, Webb lifted a gloved hand, turned, and walked back toward the elevator shaft his crew had forced open earlier that day. They were using a pulley system now, mechanical winch powered by portable batteries, to move between floors. Smart, considering the elevators were dead. Dangerous, but smart. They didn't come back down that day, but we knew it wasn't over. That evening, the infected returned. Not a horde, just a handful, maybe 6 or 7. But this time, they weren't on the lower floors. They were higher, 34, 35. We watched them on the hallway feeds. They moved in slow, staggered lines, pausing at doors, testing knobs, leaning against glass until it cracked. One of them had its lower jaw hanging loose, swinging with every step. Another had a child's pink backpack still strapped across its chest. It was bloated and sagging with what we could only guess. We couldn't stop them, couldn't reach them. All we could do was lock more floors and pray no one made a sound loud enough to bring more. The next day, a transmission crackled through the old backup radio system still wired into the building's emergency maintenance center. It was analog, something from a repeater outside the city still functional. The voice was faint, a woman's, distorted by static. Containment zone, northern perimeter failed. If you're in high structures, stay above floor 35. City grid offline. Repeat, all ground access compromised. Then silence. No coordinates, no name. But it was the first voice outside our walls in days. We played it twice, then 3 more times, hoping it would repeat. It didn't. Either the repeater failed or the source stopped broadcasting. The message was clear though, stay high, which meant we were already in the dead zone, literally. That night we counted how many people were still with us. Of the original 12 guards, 5 remained, 2 engineers, 1 medic, 3 food service workers, a janitor named Khaled who hadn't spoken since the second day but cleaned bloodstains in total silence like it gave him a reason to exist. 17 people, and half of them were terrified of the other half. We split into 2 groups, one stayed on floor 22, the other on floor 17. We alternated watches, rations, and patrols. Every decision had to be made fast, and every argument had to be shut down faster. Tension was high. Nobody slept more than 2 hours at a time. I kept thinking about the way Webb looked at us. Like we weren't a threat. Like we weren't even worth arguing with. I hadn't seen Harlan since the first day he landed, but I imagined him at the top of the tower in some mirrored suite, sipping imported liquor and waiting out the apocalypse while those below him turned into rot. Floor 32 broke the following morning. We lost camera feeds first. Then one of the emergency exit locks tripped. When we reviewed the logs, it showed a resident keycard had been used. Someone let them in. We descended to investigate. 4 of us, gear ready, improvised spears, wrenches. I carried the fire axe again, its grip slick with layers of dried blood I couldn't fully clean. The hallway on 32 was eerily quiet. Too quiet. I moved slow, checking each suite number. Most were sealed. Suite 3205 was not. Inside, the glass table was shattered. Red streaks ran across the walls like someone had tried to paint their escape route. The bedroom was empty, but the bathroom door was ajar. I opened it and stopped moving. A woman lay in the tub, face submerged, arms over the rim like she'd dragged herself in and then just stopped. One of her ankles was missing, torn, not cut. On the mirror above the sink, someone had written "No escape" in lipstick, over and over, 12 times, all caps, all smeared. We left and sealed the floor. By the time we got back up, one of the food workers was gone, Muna. She'd left a note. I heard my sister's voice in the vents. I'm going to find her. We knew her sister worked in the lower kitchen staff, floor 15. That meant Muna had gone down alone. None of us had the strength to follow. From that day forward, people started disappearing every night, one at a time. No screams, no fights, just gone. The ones who remained started whispering about hallucinations, voices in the walls, dreams that felt like memories. I didn't believe it. Not until Khaled came to me at dawn and asked why I'd told him to go to the elevator shaft. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 days. The descent began on day 8. We couldn't stay above the infected anymore. They were climbing now, through ventilation shafts, busted utility corridors, crawling where they couldn't walk. We had to find new shelter. We decided to move down to the sub-maintenance levels, below floor 10, where we could barricade deeper. Rations would run out, but water was still flowing through emergency systems. The journey down was slow, dangerous. We passed floors where the lights flickered with no pattern. Motion sensors still triggered uselessly in abandoned hallways. On floor 16, we found a wall covered in crude drawings, figures with missing eyes, others with gaping mouths. Someone had scrawled dozens of tally marks along the ceiling tiles, counting something. Then we found the first living resident we'd seen in 3 days. He was locked inside a personal gym suite, glass walls, private equipment, dumbbells, treadmill. His name was Mr. Qasim, a former diplomat from Algeria. He looked dehydrated, delirious but alive. We tried to coax him out. He refused. "I've seen them," he whispered through the glass. "They don't die, right? You can't kill the ones that remember." We didn't argue. We left him there. He wasn't going to come out, and we didn't have time to drag him. When we reached the sub-maintenance floors, the air was cooler, drier, less decay. We sealed the main hall and created a safe zone using furniture, office shelving, and wiring panels. The engineers rewired emergency lights to blink in set intervals, enough to keep us from sitting in total dark. We stayed in the sub-maintenance level for 3 nights before we realized it wasn't as safe as we thought. At first, it felt like a relief to be below the chaos. No echoes of dragging footsteps overhead. No flickering skyline bleeding in through glass. Just steel walls, conduit panels, concrete floors, and silence. It gave the illusion of control. It let you think. Maybe we could wait it out here. Maybe the city would pull itself together. But even down there, in the bowels of the Burj Al Noor, the rot found its way in. Hashim took first watch that night. He sat cross-legged beside the only access stair we hadn't welded shut, a crowbar across his lap and a small flashlight clipped to his collar. The rest of us, crammed into the utility lounge behind the breaker wall, rotated in 2-hour shifts for rest. There was no sleep, just cycles of blinking in the dim red light and listening for things that didn't belong. By the time I took over from Hashim, he hadn't spoken a word in hours. Just nodded once and handed me the crowbar like it meant something. His eyes were dry, hollow, like whatever part of him that had fought to keep order was finally eroding. I let him walk off without comment. At 0200 hours, I heard something. Not movement, not breathing. A vibration, subtle. Like someone had touched a pipe somewhere above us and let it hum all the way down the shaft. It only lasted a second. Then it came again, stronger, a repeated tap, like code, or footsteps on metal. I radioed Daoud, who was stationed near the panel vault. No answer. I tried again, quieter, still nothing. Then I noticed the wire, one of the emergency light circuits we'd rerouted, twitching gently. Movement in the duct above it. I pulled the flashlight off my vest and aimed it upward. The vent slats didn't move, but something passed behind them, a faint distortion. Then silence. I moved slow, deliberate to the service hall where Daoud was stationed. The hallway was empty. His gear lay on the floor. Baton, radio, half a ration bar still in its wrapper. No blood, no drag marks. Just the gear, abandoned like he'd vanished mid-step. I wanted to call out, but I knew better. Sound traveled too well down there. I returned to the safe room, sealed the inner lock, and wrote his name on the wall next to the others we'd lost. We weren't even marking dates anymore, just tallies and initials. We didn't have the luxury of timekeeping, only survival. The following day, one of the engineers, Farid, tried to re-establish a connection with the tower's backup satellite dish. The unit was located behind a reinforced utility crawl space 2 floors up. It wasn't designed for regular access, and the hatch had warped during the last fire drill in early spring. Still, we thought we had enough tools to pry it open. Farid and Khaled volunteered. I didn't like splitting up, but we needed comms. If there was anything left out there, even a drifting signal, it could mean a chance at coordination, at escape. They climbed out through the vertical shaft ladder, bringing a toolbox, a floodlight, and a sheet of aluminum they planned to use as a signal reflector. They never reached the hatch. I heard it through the wall panel. The metal squealed first, like something forced its way into a space too narrow for it. Then a shout. Not panic. Warning. A single word cut off halfway through, followed by something much worse. Wet, rhythmic impacts, like flesh against tile, then grinding, like teeth on concrete. I didn't send anyone after them. I didn't even open the hatch. I just closed the breaker access and marked 2 more names on the wall. That night, I found the fire axe. It was buried in the wall behind a locker, wedged into a concrete seam, blade side first. The edge was chipped, the wood splintered and wet. It hadn't been lost. Someone had hidden it. I brought it into the safe room and laid it on the floor between us. There were 7 of us left now. 3 guards, 2 support staff, 1 cook, and the janitor. I looked each of them in the eye and asked a simple question. Who took it? Nobody spoke. Not even a whisper. I left the axe where it was. Anyone who wanted it would have to make that choice publicly now. We didn't have the energy for interrogations. The next morning, Webb came back. He didn't knock, didn't call out, just appeared at the door with one of his men, both armed, both covered in dried stains I didn't want to analyze. He looked thinner, sharper, like the tower itself had carved pieces off him and sharpened the rest. His partner didn't speak, just scanned the room slowly, methodically. "We're evacuating," Webb said. "There's a team inbound. 48 hours. I didn't ask for proof. I asked why he was telling us. "You've got tools, wiring, battery backups. You're going to help us light the top floors again so the bird can see where to land." I told him we didn't take orders from penthouse pirates. He smiled. "Then don't help. We'll use the batteries anyway, and take the rest, one way or another." I didn't argue. I just stood between him and the others. He waited, didn't push, just turned and walked out like he was already counting the hours. We moved again that night, down 2 more floors to the backup water tank chambers. They weren't meant for occupation, just pipes, pumps, maintenance notes etched on panels with grease pencils, but it was dry, quiet, cold. We tore up ceiling tiles for padding, slept on insulation, ate powdered drink mix mixed with water because there was nothing else left. When you don't have flavor anymore, you chew texture. It's a form of survival. On the 3rd night below, I woke to something brushing against my leg. At first I thought it was a pipe or debris from a loose ceiling panel, but then it moved again, more deliberate. I sat up fast, reached for the flashlight. Khaled was gone. So was one of the metal bars we'd welded into a wall brace. I followed the tunnel trail out to the service junction, where the wall had been forced open. The panel screws were twisted, not unscrewed, pulled like someone with inhuman strength had yanked them apart. On the ground was a single, torn janitor's glove, no blood, just the glove, fingers curled like it had been gripping something when it was ripped off. That left 6 of us. We couldn't hold out much longer, not underground, not with the dead coming from above and the living coming from above them. We were in the middle now, the worst place to be. We decided to move up again, not all the way, just a few floors, somewhere we could see daylight again, somewhere we could open a window and feel wind, even if it carried smoke, even if it smelled like ash. We picked floor 12, a conference level rarely used with a single access stair and sealed utility shafts. The climb took 3 hours. We passed bodies, not moving, not bloated, mummified now, drained of color like they'd dried out standing up. One had no face left, just a hollow skull with teeth exposed and dried hair curling up like smoke. When we reached the conference floor, we sealed the stairwell behind us with scrap metal and weld patches. We set tripwires using utensils tied to metal mugs. Anything that moved would rattle. Anything that tried to enter would announce itself. The windows faced west. The skyline had changed. Smoke rose from 4 different quadrants, 2 of them thick and black, the others orange and drifting. Far below, we saw streets littered with husks, cars burned to frame, billboards that had begun to peel like shedding skin. There was a moment, maybe 10 seconds, where the 6 of us stood in front of that shattered skyline and convinced ourselves that something had changed. The color of the smoke, the direction of the wind, the faint tremble in the glass. We told ourselves those things meant a shift, an opportunity, hope. But hope is a dangerous thing in a building full of locked doors, infected hallways, and people who've already decided you don't deserve to live. Still, it was something. And after everything, we clung to it like addicts desperate for another hit of before. The conference floor gave us a temporary advantage. 1 stairwell, limited access, visibility in both directions. We scavenged plastic divider panels and built makeshift blinds over the interior glass. Then we formed a plan. Not to survive, survival was an illusion, just a plan to move. We had to reach the top, not because of what was up there, but because everything else was worse. The chopper meant one of 2 things. Either someone was attempting extraction or someone was broadcasting a message. Either way, it was information. And in that tower, knowledge was as rare as ammunition. Hashim was the first to speak. It was the first thing he'd said in 2 days. We go floor by floor, no elevators, no sound, no lights. He looked thinner. His beard had grown unevenly. One of his hands trembled slightly as he held his pipe weapon, a length of brass with rebar duct taped to one end, but his voice was clear. That counted for something. We split our group into 2 teams of 3. One moved up through the emergency stairwell. The other, mine, took the maintenance access behind the HVAC shaft. We'd meet on floor 20 and push up together from there. No side missions, no detours, just straight ascension. Simple in theory. By the time we reached floor 16, we found the first real problem. The stairwell was blocked by a barricade. Mattresses, twisted metal rods, broken chairs, all fused together with what looked like melted cable housing and epoxy foam. It wasn't random. Someone built this intentionally. Someone with time. That meant it wasn't infected doing the stacking. One of the engineers, Youssef, tried to peek through the gaps. He saw movement on the other side. Just a silhouette. Not shambling, not slow. It didn't react to us. We backtracked to floor 15, one of the old service levels that held backup generator access, and cut across toward the north stairwell. It hadn't been used in weeks. The dust on the railing was undisturbed. We climbed in silence, passing floor markers every 2 landings, 18, 19. At 20, we stopped. The door had blood across it. Not sprayed, not splattered, dragged. It streaked upward from the floor like someone had been pulled against it and lifted before dying, or after. I didn't want to speculate. We checked the hallway beyond through the narrow vision pane. Nothing moved. The lights still flickered in their sickly half-power rhythm. We opened the door slowly. The air smelled different. It wasn't rot. It wasn't chemical. It was human. Sweat, oil, canned food gone stale. That meant someone had been here, recently. The hallway was empty, doors all closed, no sign of struggle, until we reached Suite 2003. There was no door anymore, just a frame. The metal hinges twisted, glass shards crunching under our boots. Inside, furniture had been pushed aside, blankets arranged like camp mats, empty tins piled against the wall, and at the far end, mounted on a desk lamp, was a makeshift antenna, jury-rigged from old radio parts and wire mesh. A small, battery-powered transceiver buzzed quietly on the table beside it. Youssef approached and adjusted the dial, static, then faint modulation, then something clear. Repeating signal. Extraction window limited. Burj Al Noor rooftop access required. Will not return. We all looked at each other. No one spoke. That last line said everything. Will not return. We tore the signal unit from the table and packed it. Even if the chopper left, the message might repeat. Someone might respond. Someone might still be out there. We regrouped at stairwell 22. The others had made it up, but they weren't alone. Behind them, tied with plastic cable loops and gagged, was a man I recognized. One of Harlan's private guards. Not Webb. Another one. Younger, blonde, American. He'd been caught sneaking through one of the unsecured guest rooms below. No weapon, just a utility knife and 2 small oxygen tanks, the kind used for private rebreather kits. We didn't know what to do with him. We questioned him for hours, or tried to. He wouldn't speak. He looked past us, like we were shadows. Eventually, Hashim had enough. He took the man's oxygen tank and crushed the valve with a hammer, let it hiss empty on the floor, then walked away. That night, the guard vanished. No noise, no escape trail, just gone. We kept climbing. Floor 26 had corpses, real ones, not infected, shot cleanly, executed. A family, woman, child, elderly man in a robe, all laid out on a dining table like a final act of civility. A message was scrawled on the wall in English and Arabic. Better this than the teeth. We didn't linger. Floor 28 smelled like smoke. Something electrical had burned through the wall paneling. Lights failed. HVAC fans were still whirring faintly, like ghost machines running on memory. At 30, we found remnants of another group. Not staff, not guards. Residents who had tried to organize. They left notes behind. Names, dates, floor plans, theories. One note simply read, "Webb is lying. The rooftop was never cleared." It didn't matter. We had nothing else to climb towards. At floor 34, we heard gunfire. Controlled bursts, suppressed. Not random, not panic. Webb. He was still alive, still fighting, still holding something back. We didn't know what, but if anyone had leverage on the rooftop, it was him. Floor 35 was barricaded. We took the long way around, crawled through a shattered window frame into the outer maintenance rim, moving slow along the building's curve, hugging the reinforced glass. One misstep would have meant falling 20 stories into a world already over. Inside, we found weapons, not many, but enough. 1 pistol, 3 full clips, 2 utility blades, a fire blanket wrapped around what looked like a grenade, but was actually a radio beacon, a distress marker for aerial evac teams. That was our key. We climbed to 36. It was chaos, bullet holes in the walls, blood trails, empty food wrappers. A security drone, half burned, lay in the hallway, wires exposed. Infected bodies lay twisted in heaps, their heads caved in, precise, brutal. Webb's work. We followed the trail upward, 38, 39, then on floor 40 we heard it. Voices, not just Webb, others, multiple, armed, arguing. We paused behind a collapsed sofa, peering through a broken decorative lattice wall. Webb stood at the center of a cleared meeting room, surrounded by 4 others in mismatched gear. He was shouting into a sat phone. The chopper was coming, within hours, but only 1 team could go, not all, not most, just 5. Webb's voice was hard and clipped, stripped of any emotion as he delivered the message like a final command from a crumbling chain of command. 5 people, no more. The pilot said the bird can't carry dead weight. 1 team, light, fast, top of the spire. Be there or be left. His hand shook slightly as he lowered the sat phone. Not from nerves, from exhaustion, maybe malnutrition, or maybe just from knowing what had to happen next. The room had gone still, except for the steady, rhythmic flash of the activated beacon. A low-frequency red pulse that filled the space with a stuttering heartbeat. The others surrounding him shifted their stances. 2 men, a woman, and 1 older security contractor who looked like he'd walked out of a war zone 3 days ago. Dust and soot covered their clothes. None of them had clean skin. All of them had weapons. That was the common currency now, what you could kill with. The woman broke the silence first. She gestured at a map they'd pinned to the wall, one of the building's blueprints marked with grease pen and tape. There are more than 5 of us left. You expect us to fight our way to the roof and then choose who gets on the ride out? Her tone wasn't fear, it was challenge. Webb didn't blink. No fight. We choose now. One of the others, tall, lean, with a wrapped arm and dried blood on his collar, stepped closer. You mean you choose, that it? He thumbed the safety on his weapon with a practiced touch. I motioned for the rest of my team to stay low. We were watching from the outer corridor behind a broken wall divider. I counted 6 exits, 3 damaged, 2 jammed and 1 partially blocked with debris. If things went bad, we'd have only seconds to retreat. The beacon's pulse was now the only consistent light source in the room, casting everyone's shadow in rhythmic jerks like a slow strobe. Webb exhaled through his nose. You want to take it to a vote? Fine, but make it quick. We don't have long before they find this place. And right on cue, something above us thudded. A metal groan, not the building settling. Wait, footsteps. Then a muffled hiss from a ventilation grate. The room went silent again, but this time the fear wasn't theoretical. It was listening. From our side of the divider, I saw Youssef glance at me. I nodded. We had to move. We couldn't stay hidden while people with guns fought about who got to live. If that beacon kept pulsing, it would draw everything in the tower to one place, and it already had a head start. I stepped out from behind the wall. 6 rifles shifted toward me immediately. Webb didn't raise his, but the other 4 weren't as hesitant. I kept my hands visible, no weapons drawn, just slow movements. You're wasting time, I said. You want to decide who lives? Do it on the roof, with the bird overhead, not while the building's waking up. The tall man laughed bitterly. You think we're going to just let you and your crew tag along? We don't need permission, I said. We've survived this long without playing king of the corpse pile. Webb waved the man down. Elias, he said, finally acknowledging me. I figured you were still breathing. Same, I said. Didn't expect you to last past floor 30. I don't die easy. He turned to the beacon, then back to me. You still got batteries? 2 left. Keep them. Another thud overhead, closer this time, and a different sound too, the squeal of glass warping under pressure, one of the external window panels. The infected were adapting, or pressing together so tightly that their combined weight pushed the infrastructure. Either way, it was bad. I looked at the woman. "You got wounded?" She shook her head. "Nothing fresh. You?" "Lost a man 2 days ago, another last night, but we've got gear and routes. You want to live? We move now. Or the ones making the decision won't be breathing when the chopper arrives." That did it. Webb holstered his sidearm. "We move in 10. Grab what you can. We climb." We took the central stairwell up to floor 42. There was a break in the ceiling panel there, a gap that allowed access into one of the penthouse emergency service ducts, meant for maintenance only, but it bypassed the blocked main passage and led directly to the heliport access. The climb would be brutal, vertical, half collapsed. While we moved, we heard the building coming alive again, not in the normal way, not lights, not power, voices, faint, indistinct, whispering. Some swore it was hallucination. Others said it was the infected learning how to mimic. I didn't believe either. I'd seen too much and understood too little to guess anymore. All I knew was that the closer we got to the top, the less human the building felt. We reached the broken service duct and climbed single file. It was like crawling through the body of a dead animal. Hot, sticky, wires hanging like sinew. It smelled like rot and machine oil, and worse, it echoed, every movement amplified. A dropped boot scraped the whole shaft like a blade across steel. Youssef was third in line. The woman, Sana, was behind him. I was last. Halfway up we heard a scream, not from below, not above, inside the duct. Something had entered from a collapsed side vent. I saw a shape lurch forward, thin limbs, mouth agape, eyes white and blind. It didn't make noise, it just moved. I swung my flashlight against its face hard enough to crush bone. It flailed. Youssef turned and stabbed down with a crowbar, but the thing clung to the wall like a spider. Sana kicked it square in the neck. It fell, but grabbed her ankle as it went. She didn't scream. She just bit her lip and drove her other foot down with enough force to shatter its grip. It fell into the dark. We kept climbing. When we reached the rooftop access, the air changed. Cold. Open. The heat of the tower disappeared. Wind rushed past us, tainted with ash and smoke, but fresh. The sky was bruised grey. Early morning light bleeding through the haze. The city below was unrecognizable. No traffic, no people, just scars. The helipad was intact, scorched, scarred, but intact. The beacon blinked steadily. 5 of us remained, 2 from Webb's group, 3 from mine. Others hadn't made it. One was torn from the duct during the last 10 feet. Another never reached the top. We waited for 10 minutes, 20, then we heard it. Distant at first, then louder. The chopper. It cut through the smog like a ghost bird. Twin blades, low glide path, military spec, not civilian, no markings. It hovered. The rope ladder unfurled. Then the pilot's voice came through the beacon's speaker. 5 only. Any more, we leave. Confirm boarding now. No one moved. Then Webb stepped forward, pointed at his own chest, then pointed at me. "You lead," he said. "You earned it." I didn't thank him. I didn't smile. I just nodded once and turned to the others. Youssef was pale, bleeding from his forearm, but he nodded. He knew it too. Sana had a limp, but her eyes were hard. We didn't fight, we climbed. As the chopper lifted, the rooftop swarmed with the infected. They poured from stairwells, clawed from roof vents, climbed the sides of the tower like insects. One grabbed Webb's leg as he held the ladder. He didn't cry out. He kicked once, twice, then fell. Webb disappeared into the swarm like a stone dropped into black water. No splash, no echo, just gone. I kept climbing. I didn't look down again. There was nothing I could do for him, and I wouldn't waste the seconds it took to mourn. The chopper rocked in the wind as it lifted us higher, rotors slicing through smoke-thick sky. The air stung. Even above the tower, the atmosphere was no longer clean. It had a weight to it, like something burned was still clinging to the molecules. Sana was above me on the rope ladder, her hands bleeding where she'd ripped open old cuts during the climb. Youssef was behind me, breathing hard, mumbling prayers between clenched teeth. Behind him, the last man, an engineer from Harlan's floor whose name I'd never caught, lost his grip on the ladder when the infected reached the lowest rung. He shouted something, probably a name, before disappearing backwards into the smoke. By the time we were 30 feet clear of the rooftop, the infected had filled every inch of it. Some of them stared up, mouths open, hands twitching as if trying to remember what flight was. Others tore at the railing. One ran straight into the spinning shadow of the rotor arc, and his body vanished in a pink mist. No one spoke for the next 15 minutes. The pilot didn't answer our questions, not at first. He was focused, calm, professional. Short black beard, grey flight suit, no visible rank or emblem. The co-pilot, a woman, younger, maybe mid-30s, glanced back at us once as we climbed inside the main compartment. She had a tablet mounted near her console, and I caught a glimpse of what was on it. Maps, red zones, heat signatures. The entire region was lit up like a brush fire. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, all ringed in orange, then red, then black. We were handed sealed masks and told to secure them immediately, not because of the virus, because of the air. Dust from city fires, synthetic particles from burning polymers, powdered glass, airborne contaminants from collapsed infrastructure. The outbreak hadn't just destroyed people, it had broken every piece of the system that kept the city breathable. The filters weren't optional. The pilot finally spoke as we crossed the outskirts of the Palm Jumeirah. Extraction protocol requires silence, flight plan restricted, debrief at safe zone, estimated 30 minutes. His English was clean, flat, like a script he'd memorized too many times. I asked where we were headed. He didn't look back. Al Dhafra Air Base, or what's left of it. That's when I realized this wasn't a rescue, this was a pull and drop. Get bodies out of hot zones, drop them somewhere cold, move on. The only reason we were still alive was because someone needed the seats filled, not because they believed we deserved saving. Sana didn't say anything. She just stared out the window, watching the coastline shrink behind us, like a dream half remembered. When we touched down, the base was nearly unrecognizable. I'd been to Al Dhafra before, back when it was an operational hub for surveillance drones and refueling runs. Back then it was busy, secure, controlled. Now it looked like a refugee camp built inside a bomb crater. Temporary shelters stretched across the runways, modular tents, cargo crates, reconfigured aircraft fuselages. Soldiers patrolled in full suits, not hazmat but something worse. Soft armor with embedded respirators and ID tags I didn't recognize. A new branch, a new authority, not UAE, not UN, something else. As we disembarked, we were immediately separated. Not aggressively, just efficiently. Medicals went one way, interviews another. Equipment was confiscated. Our packs were replaced with numbered plastic bags. We weren't told what would happen next. They took our blood. They scanned our eyes, our teeth, our skin. I hadn't seen a clean white surface in weeks, and the sight of a stainless steel table made me feel like a stranger in my own body. The medic who tested me said nothing as he swabbed my arm. He wore a faceplate with a HUD interface projected on the inside. When the screen blinked red, I felt my pulse jump. He didn't flinch, just reset the device and tried again. The second result was green. No explanation, just a nod. Next. I found myself sitting alone in a darkened trailer not long after, cold air pumping through ceiling vents like recycled ghosts. A man entered, civilian clothes, business casual demeanor. Nothing about him felt military, but everything about him said authority. He sat across from me and powered on a tablet. His voice was measured, emotionless. "You are Elias Rahim, former military, private security at Burj Al Noir. Last confirmed report of your team was 9 days ago." I said nothing. "We've had partial drone footage of the tower. Heat signatures, no radio contact. You've been presumed dead since the 4th day. That makes you valuable." Still I said nothing. He continued, "Tell me what you saw. Everything. Don't leave anything out. Even what you think doesn't matter, especially that." And so I told him about the first signs, the cleaning staff, the basement, the way the infected didn't scream, how they listened, moved in coordination, learned. I told him about Webb, about the beacon, the way the infected climbed the tower like they were drawn to it, like it was home. He didn't interrupt, not once, just took notes on his device and nodded occasionally. Then he asked me one question that didn't make sense at first. "How many infected did you see with no visible injuries?" I blinked. "What?" "In the tower. How many walked like they were whole?" I tried to remember. It hadn't seemed important at the time. Most of them were torn, broken, rotted. But some... I remembered the maid from the camera feed, perfectly intact except for her eyes, the child-sized one with the pink backpack, unhurt, just wrong. "More than a few," I said. He didn't react, just tapped a note and stood. "That's all for now. You'll be reassigned to Containment Zone Delta, temporary civilian role. Food and water are supplied. You'll have shelter." I asked him what was coming next. He paused at the door. "We've lost 72% of the Gulf region. Most cities fell before we realized it wasn't spreading by bite. The incubation phase is longer than expected. Some carriers never turn, but they pass it on anyway. Through breath, through sweat, through memory." Memory? But he was already gone. When I was taken to the shelter, I found Sana in the corner, curled up beneath a repurposed emergency blanket. Youssef was sleeping near a heater pipe, muttering in his sleep. The shelter was a steel box with no windows. Not a bunker, not quite, but a prefab housing unit bolted to the floor of what used to be a maintenance bay. The air was filtered, dry, and tasted faintly of ozone. There were rows of cots, each numbered, 2 plastic toilets at the rear, no doors. The walls were lined with black insulation foam meant to dampen sound, but you could still hear things. Ventilation hums, distant footsteps, low voices from rooms beyond the partition. Occasionally there was a mechanical whine overhead, drone rotors, electric, fast. We were told not to leave unless escorted. Meals came 3 times a day in sealed trays, thermal packs, identical in portion and flavorless by design. No one spoke much. There were 18 of us in that module, not counting the guards outside. A mix of survivors from other towers, a few emergency responders who'd abandoned their posts, and 2 doctors who refused to talk about what they'd seen in Muscat. Sana didn't look at me the first day. She just kept her head down, arms wrapped around her knees like she was still on the rooftop, waiting for the wind to lift her away. I let her be. Everyone needed their own pace. Youssef didn't talk either, not unless you counted the half-lucid words he mumbled in his sleep. Sometimes I'd catch fragments. They remember. The walls were breathing. She wasn't dead. It was the same loop, night after night. On the 3rd day, the lights flickered and stayed dim. We were told it was a power calibration error, but the guards started wearing new masks, sleeker, fully sealed. Their sidearms were now visible at all times. That evening, we were moved. No explanation, just names called, one by one, 2 guards per person. Each of us escorted in silence through a series of prefab tunnels lit by amber LEDs. I counted my steps, 40 to the junction, 12 to the decontamination gate, then a lift, slow, heavy, industrial grade. When the doors opened, we were in a different part of the base. White panels, glass dividers, no dirt, no sound of other people. Just distant machines clicking rhythmically like they were timing something. We were separated again. This time, I was placed in a room with a table, 2 chairs, and a display panel embedded in the wall. It flickered once, then came to life. The man from before, business casual, neutral expression, appeared again, this time over video. "Hello again, Elias." I didn't answer. He continued. "We've reviewed your debrief, cross-referenced it with satellite logs and survivor reports from Towers 9, 14, and 22. You've seen something we believe is key." The display flickered again. A series of still images flashed across the screen, grainy, time-stamped. Footage from surveillance cameras across Dubai. First, a hospital hallway, a patient walking calmly, barefoot, hospital gown hanging loose, no wounds, but every nurse he passed dropped minutes later. Next, a mall security feed. A woman pressing her forehead to the glass of a toy store. Her eyes were milky, unfocused. Children nearby began crying in unison. One collapsed. No physical contact. Then, Burj Al Noor, a timestamp from 3 days before the outbreak reached the tower. A crowd in the lobby, people waiting for the elevators. And there she was, the maid. Same posture, same tilt of the head, same expressionless stare. But this was before she turned. Before the cameras ever showed her standing in the garage. This was earlier. He paused the frame. "We call them index carriers," he said. "Early stage infecteds, no symptoms, no decay, no wounds, but cognitively different. Behavior shifts, emotional flattening, selective memory retention." He leaned forward slightly, even through the screen. "They don't spread the virus like others, not through saliva, not through blood. They spread it through presence, exposure, memory." I frowned. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't need to, he said. We have proof. It's not a pathogen in the traditional sense. It's more like a shared signal, an imprint. When you see them, something in you changes, slowly, and it can't be undone. He paused again. Let that sit. You saw her, Elias. You looked into her face. You're a carrier now. The silence was total. Then I stood, not out of panic, out of clarity. Something clicked, like a puzzle piece snapping into place. The dreams, the voices, the feeling that I'd forgotten something important, something just out of reach. What happens now? I asked. He didn't blink. Now, you help us. They called it the memory wall. A black composite surface lined with modular screens, photographs and tags. Everyone who survived was brought before it at least once. You'd stand there, one guard on either side, and point to faces, places, things you recognized. You weren't told where they were from, just asked what you felt. The idea was that if you'd seen an infected and remembered it, really remembered its face, the way it moved, then you were compromised. Not sick, not contagious, but changed. The people running the place didn't say that outright, but you could tell. Survivors who remembered too much were marked. Those who couldn't recall details got more food, more privileges. Those who said too much got pulled aside for additional interviews and never came back. Sana broke down during her third session. She'd held it together longer than most, but when they showed her a still image from a city street in Sharjah, she froze. Her brother had died there during the first wave. She was sure of it. But in the image, he was alive, smiling, standing in front of a market stall with people in the background. She stared at it for nearly a minute, then refused to answer any more questions. After that, she didn't speak at all. Youssef was removed a few days later. They said he was being transferred to another site for psychological evaluation. Before he left, I saw the sketches he'd made, floor plans of Burj Al Noor, down to the emergency crawl space behind the HVAC trunk on 36. He hadn't been with us on that floor. He'd never even seen the layout. When someone asked how he knew it, he just said, I remembered it in a dream. That was the last we saw of him. When it was my turn, I gave them nothing. I looked at their photos, their footage, their maps, and told them I didn't recognize any of it. When they pressed, I shrugged and said it had all blurred together. Trauma did that. They seemed to accept it. Maybe they didn't care. Or maybe they knew I was lying and decided I wasn't a threat. But I had seen something they didn't show me. One of the tower's maintenance monitors had kicked on for a second while I was checking a floor alone. 34, I think. It had been dead for hours, static mostly. Then it flickered, and I saw myself, just standing there, staring at the camera, still as a statue, and the feed cut. I didn't tell anyone. Eventually, the protocols changed. We were allowed to walk the perimeter in pairs, supervised by armed escorts. The air still smelled of plastic and ash, even through the filters. The sun came through hazy, never warm. Drones buzzed overhead every few hours. The guards never looked us in the eye. They all wore the same expression. Exhaustion behind discipline. One by one, people were reassigned. Some went to other facilities. Some, we were told, had been cleared for return to controlled zones. Others just disappeared. No records, no bags, no names on the list anymore. I stopped asking questions. The last time I saw Sana, she was walking with one of the handlers toward an exit corridor. She looked different, steady, more alert. Her limp was gone. She didn't acknowledge me until she reached the end of the hall. Then she turned, gave me the briefest smile, and kept walking. I never saw her again. Now I spend most of my time in the observation wing. They say it's a civilian role, helping catalog survivor reports, annotating what's usable, what's suspect. I sit at a terminal and read story after story. Sometimes they blur together. Sometimes they're too familiar. I try not to think about what really happened in the tower, what we saw, what we did to stay alive. I don't dwell on the dead, or on the ones who killed for a seat on the ladder. I tell myself it's over, that we got out. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I'm back on the 31st floor. The hall is quiet. The door is open. Something is dripping from inside, and I still can't see where the sound is coming from. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.